Now with the toes more out, it allows certainly a much bigger range of turn, and where we just had still those echoes of this movement away from the golf ball, with a few sort of objects in here allowing him to rotate without the movement away.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Kerrod here today on the range at Bletchingley Golf Club, standing next to Ollie Tucker. Ollie, thanks for coming along, my man.
No problem, pleasure.
And we're going to be running through some great exercises and drills to improve the quality of your backswing. The golf swing, it tends to have a domino effect from how you set up to the backswing to the impact, and we're going to be focusing on some key elements here that could really upgrade the quality of your ball striking. Let's get in. So right here, we've got an excellent example of someone that's new to golf, right? He's played a lifetime of other sports, and he's well aware of how to move, how to produce an athletic motion. But when it came to golf, what made him so frustrated, but also addicted to him, was that the fact that when he was playing, he just felt so unathletic. He was stuck and static, and he couldn't move the golf club. He was filled with tension, and it just got him really frustrated. And he felt like for someone who was proficient at doing a lot of things involving hand-eye coordination and a ball, he just was incredibly disheveled about how poorly he struck the golf ball, correct?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this is a great example for a lot of guys out there, because we're going to talk about how something in the setup can have a huge influence in the way the body moves. And for a lot of players, what they do is they focus so much on positions or where the club is or the shaft or shallowing, and they don't really look enough at sometimes what is actually causing the majority of those issues.
Yep.
And you did a few tests on this guy, seeing his flexibility and his mobility, and it was great. But you made some awareness, or you brought some awareness to him about the importance of how he sets his feet, right? So let's talk about, you see on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, give me a bit of an understanding about what you talked about with this guy.
Yes, we're just looking from below the knee, you see quite an obvious difference between the left and right-hand side and where the feet are pointing, so we call this flare. So the model on the right-hand side, toes sort of pointing, flared out.
So, and we can see that distinctly by how these toes are actually positioned in regards to the orientation, right? So with this one over here on the right-hand side, it is evident that his toes on both of these, relative to being straight, are flared out considerably more.
Yep.
Correct? So we can see that on the left-hand side here, he's definitely got even his front one's actually pointing more towards the golf ball, isn't it? Right? And in terms of creating an athletic movement through the ball, that's a huge hindrance. Huge hindrance. And having that back foot quite straight on, or as straight on as it was relative to this guy's individual mobility, didn't really assist him in doing what in the golf swing?
Just no turn, or the incorrect turn, let's say.
Yeah, yeah. So talk about the importance of turn in the golf swing, right? We see so many players, they look at their arms, they go, I'm all bunched up and I'm chicken winging on the back and the follow through. Yep. A lot of that occurs due to the fact that players are not actually sufficiently rotating.
So yeah, the left hand side and with the toes turned in and not flared out like you see with the model. We've talked about 30 other sports, so particularly cricket and football. Yep. Now when these players bat in, if you're stepping forward to hit a shot, immediately the left foot turns out this way. So it allows you to hit shots in different positions, particularly turn through the ball this way. Yeah. Same if you're kicking a football, no one puts their foot there to kick that way on the follow through. And it works the same on the backswing in terms of rotation. If my right foot, my trail foot is inward this way, any movement in terms of rotation just becomes a lot harder than
really impinges this hip, doesn't it?
So that feels tight already.
Yeah, so when you set up to the golf ball here, and this is one of the little tests that you gave this guy, if you exaggerate things and we go all or nothing, what I want you to do is turn that even more, right? And you go, okay, try and turn back as far as you can. And this guy straight away complained that it felt like it was like impinging through here. There was a bit of pain. And if you try and swing the golf club back, you really can't turn anymore, can you?
No, that's it.
You can see, looks like you're more likely standing at a urinal right there than actually making a powerful athletic motion. So if you set back to the golf ball there, now turn your toes out so it feels like a duck, now do the same sort of feeling. Well, look at this range of motion. Yeah, right? It's huge. Now, so much more depth through the hips, so much turn through the upper body. Now this golf club can get deeper and further behind you, which then just facilitates or allows you to create more speed throughout the motion.
Yep, correct. Yeah. I mean, the player was trying to create some sort of turn with this foot inward, getting back to here. The only option after that was a bit of a sway off the golf ball.
Yeah, yeah. And because his frustration was just overall consistency, there's real three main fundamentals of golf, right? We've got impact, speed, and control. And his impact was off because when you don't turn, there's a breakdown of the structure of the arms, and he was shifting and swinging off the golf ball. There's a lot of things that have to align for him to actually get to a compressed state back at the moment of impact. His speed was off because he wasn't turning sufficiently, and that's the main power source, right, in the golf swing with his rotation. And then from there, obviously, his control right? But control's kind of the least of his worries. It's all about impact for big.
It was ball striking completely.
Yeah. Let's get his the ball somewhat striking the grooves of the club face, and the bottom of the swing occurring in front of the golf ball. You do those two things, and he's going to leave a happier golfer because he's not going to be so inconsistent with his strike. And really, at the end of the day, upon conversations, that was his big frustration: consistency of strike.
Yeah, I mean, left and right didn't matter. It was just contact, and let's get the ball up in the air more consistently.
So then, what was the drill that you gave him to ensure in the setup that when he went through this, he was first of all getting his toe flare, but then also giving him a reference for this newfound ability to turn, right? So you said that you used some reference points for his toes,
correct?
Right?
Yeah.
And so, you used, let's say we'll just use golf balls for this, so set up to the ball for me. So if he was like, his back foot was there, and his front foot was like almost over there, you got him here. So let's say, what's that? 30 degrees of rotation?
Yeah, we'll go for that.
And we'll go about 15 of this one here, okay? Now, that right there just gives him a reference, if his heels are the same distance apart, of about where he should put his toes.
That's right, yeah.
Right? And you just had to remind him a couple of times. You could even put some around on the inside here, that it's from that position, he just had to line up his heels and his toes and remind himself of the flare there, which you can see from that down the line camera there. Now, because the first time he did this and you just put on the toes, guess what he did? He just widened his stance, got comfortable with his toes. And we see that players always want to kind of revert back to what feels comfortable rather than what they should be doing, right? So you got his toe flare, and then we gave him a reference for his rotation because he said, all I do is flare my toes, surely there's more than that. And you just said, well, this is what I tell you now.
So yeah, once the setup was done, so building the setup around the club, and like I said initially, even if it means you set up here and have a conscious effort to spin the toes out.
Just notice that one thing we will take note there is that you're also turning your kneecaps out as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to go that way and keep the knee in, I would say.
Yeah, we do occasionally see that players will kind of keep their knees in, and if they have huge range of motion, they're still knobbly kneed like this, but their toes will be out. So making sure that both your kneecaps and your toes are pointing out there.
So yeah, now with the toes more out, it allows certainly a much bigger range of turn, and where we just had still those echoes of this movement away from the golf ball, with a few sort of objects in here allowing him to rotate without the movement away. With
the shift, okay.
So using the stick up against the hip, it was almost increasing the gap from the stick that was in here this way, rather than moving away from the
so why don't you chip a couple down there, and I'll put my club just outside your trail hip, right? So what I want you to do, guys, is focus on where Ollie's right hip is, and then hit a couple of shots for me. Off you go. And we'll notice, and he did that so well just for that little half shot, that his trail hip actually moved closer to the target in space. And within reason, this is an exaggeration of what this player was doing with a considerable sway off the golf ball. And that was a perfect example. Let's do one more of those.
I'll try and strike this one.
Now, when he's doing this, it's only slow, and it's not really based on how well you strike it. Perfect.
So it's an exaggeration, certainly increasing that gap there.
Yeah, wonderful. And as you can see from face on there, guys, both those shots came out dead straight, right? Sure, the contact on the first one might have been a little bit thin, but we're not looking for perfect shots because it is completely different from what this gentleman was doing before. So it takes a while for these sort of feels to embed into this golf swing, where it's going to be unconscious competence and he can do it without thinking. So you got his toe flare, you gave him a reference for that. You gave him that little feeling of this golf club up against his trail hip. And the reason you did that is, to a degree, when it comes to coaching, it's about managing expectations of the individual, right? And this gentleman's a fresh golfer. He'd never had a golf lesson before.
Right.
And he wanted to build a long-term relationship with you as the coach. He was quite an analytical guy, and he liked the cause and effect of things. So when you're working with a player and they like the cause and effect and you just say toe flare, now, a lot of players, or let's say a lot of individuals who have jobs, be it engineering or in systems, they like to see a blueprint for where they go. And sometimes just saying toe flare isn't good enough. Now, for some players, it works perfectly because that's all they want. But that's the purpose of being a quality coach such as yourself, is that you get a better understanding of the individual himself through asking really good questions in your assessment phase. And then you start to build an idea with this player. Okay, what do they actually need? And for this player, he needed the toe flare, and just giving him a bit of understanding of this kind of trail hip moving more towards the target, or the feeling of, rather than shifting away. It then allowed him to really get a good understanding of the direction that you were heading in with his golf swing. You made some comparisons on the video against a professional, and then by the end of it, right, he looked at it, he thought, wow, relative to the swings that I see on TV, this looks great, and the contact was miles better.
I mean, I would love to be able to say toe flare and everyone leaves happy. And to be fair, that could have been almost the lesson. I don't really apologise for the little information anymore because I'm a more experienced coach than I was. But yeah, you're completely right. Where players are more analytical, they need extra information and that roadmap of where they're going to go, and more importantly, what is happening when we have the toe flare, and then where we're going to go next with the swing.
Yeah, every golfer's different. Some players come to you, they've got great knowledge of biomechanics in the golf swing, and every player has their own context for what they're about. And even though this gentleman, he is a brand new golfer, he'd thought about the golf swing a lot because he was very proficient in a lot of other sports. So the information that you gave him relative to the follow-on effect and the benefits from toe flare, as we've just seen with the way that you were moving and the quality of strike relative to what he was doing before, it's quite profound. So I suppose the thing that a lot of players can take away from this lesson right here is to not gloss over the small things, right? These are all perishable skills. Even professionals that you and me coach, right? A lot of the lessons, sometimes a lot more basic than players think. We might be doing a lot of setup, which amateur golfers go, you think after a guy playing golf his whole life, he might be able to get his ball position right? I had a lesson off one of my buddies the other day. It was ball position. And I was like, how the hell did he get over there? But when you're traveling so much, you get tight and tense and you move around, all these things start to creep in. So having maintenance exercises and checkpoints, working with a coach both in person, online, on a regular basis, keeping you accountable for these movements is the best way to have as much of a expedited process of improvement as possible.
Yeah. And I find a lot of people have the ability to produce the amount of movement they need, but there'll be, particularly in the setup, things holding them back. So it could be, in this case, toe flare, it could be grip, anything like that. Setup's really key.
Yeah, awesome, good work.